Hello everyone, in today's tutorial we are building an AI-powered text summarizer using React and Google's Gemini AI. Just paste any article or blog post, click a button and get an instant one-sentence summary. We will be using React, Tailwind CSS, DaisyUI and the Gemini API. By the end of this video, you will have a fully functional AI app that you can add to your portfolio. Plus, the code is super modular, so you can easily integrate this into your own projects or customize it however you want. I will be explaining everything in detail, so let's get started. Alright guys, so let's open our terminal by pressing Ctrl and backtick if you use Windows. And now let's create a new Vite project by saying npm create Vite at latest, and I will write dot in the end, so that everything will be installed inside this folder without any additional folders. So let's press enter. So Vite is a super fast build tool for modern web projects. It sets up everything we need for React development automatically. So now let's select a framework, which will be React, then a variant. And here we will choose JavaScript. Here I will say no and no again. So now let's write npm install to install all the default dependencies defined by the Vite template. So let's press enter. Alright, now we need to add Tailwind CSS for styling. So let's head over to their website. So here let's click get started. And since we use Vite, we're in the right place. We can skip the first step because we have already done it. And now let's copy this command to install Tailwind CSS and Tailwind CSS/Vite via npm. So let's paste it in our terminal and press enter. Great. Now we need to configure the Vite plugin. So let's copy this. So it means that we need to add the Tailwind CSS Vite plugin to our Vite configuration. So here we can open this file and let's paste our import right here. And also we want to use Tailwind CSS inside this array right next to React. So let's save this file. And finally, we need to add an import to our CSS file that imports Tailwind CSS. So inside source folder, we can find a file called index.css. We can delete everything and we can paste this import right here. Okay. So that is great. All right. And now we need to use DaisyUI, which is a component library that makes Tailwind CSS easier to use. All right. So now let's click how to use. And we need to install DaisyUI as a Tailwind plugin. So let's copy this command and let's open our terminal again and let's paste it right here. -d means installing it as a dev dependency. Okay. And we need to add DaisyUI to our CSS file. So let's copy this plugin and paste it right here. Okay, that is great. So now we can delete app.css, for example. We don't need this file, and inside app.g6 we can also remove this boilerplate code. Okay, this is how app.g6 looks like. And now I want to take this text and inside index.html I want to remove this default title and I want to have this one. Okay, so that is great. Okay, now let's open our terminal again. And at this time, we need to use React icons, which provides a collection of thousands of icons that we can use in React projects. So as you can see, this is how it looks like. And in order to be able to install it, let's just copy this command and paste it in our terminal. Okay, that is great, guys. All right, and at the same time, we need to be able to get Gemini API key to be able to communicate with Gemini AI, to be able to summarize our texts. Okay, for that you can type, for example, AI Studio, and you should see this link. So let's open this link. And since I am doing everything from scratch, here I need to click this checkbox to be able to continue. So let's click continue. And as you can see here, we are in Google AI Studio, and here we can have full control over what's going on. And now at this point, we need to get our API key. So let's click get API key. So as you can see, we have the default Gemini project, and here we have our API key. So let's click copy API key. And here you can use this default key or you can create a new API key. But I will go with default key. Okay. So we copied our API key, and inside our folder in the root, let's create a file called .env. And since we use Vite, we need to create a variable which will start with this prefix, which will be Vite underscore, okay? We need it so that in app.j6, for example, or in other files, we will be able to get access to it. So since we use Vite, it has to start with Vite underscore to be able to get access to it properly, okay? So let's say Vite underscore Gemini underscore API underscore key, and let's paste our key here. Okay, so let's close this file. So we have added our API key inside .env file. So keep in mind that you should never commit your .env file to GitHub, okay? We need to ignore it. So inside .gitignore, we can immediately say that we want to ignore this file. So we never want to push this file to GitHub, okay? So that's it, guys. All right, and here we can get more information about Gemini models, okay? So we will use Gemini 2.5 Flash. So as you can see, it is our best model in terms of price performance, offering well-rounded capabilities. 2.5 Flash is best for large-scale processing, low latency, high-volume tasks that require thinking and agentic use cases. So this is model code, supported data types. So inputs will be text, images, video, audio, and output will be text. So it is completely suitable for us. Our input will be text and our output will also be text. Here we have token limits. So when it comes to tokens, it is basically, when it comes to input token limit, it is basically how much text you can send to the AI, like maximum text you can paste into your summarizer, okay? And output token limit is how much text the AI can send back to us, okay? Here we have capabilities and so on. All right, now let's click Quick Start. And before we begin, it says that we need a Gemini API key. We already have it. And now since we use JavaScript, we need to install the Google Gen AI SDK, okay? So here are the requirements. It says that we need to have Node.js version 18 plus, and we need to install Google Gen AI SDK for TypeScript and JavaScript using the following npm command. So let's copy this and let's paste it in our terminal. Alright, and here you might see a warning about Node DOM exception being deprecated. But don't worry about it, this is completely normal and won't affect our application. Warnings are just heads-up messages, not errors, and as long as the installation completes successfully, we are good to go. Okay, so we have installed the Google Gen AI SDK, and as you can see here, we have make your first request, and we will come back to it very soon, but you can already take a look at it, okay? It will not be very difficult, and we will come back to it, all right? So now let's clear our terminal first to keep it clean, and now let's say npm run dev to start our development server. So let's open it. All right, this is how it looks. So you may wonder why we have dark background. It is because of the fact that we have DaisyUI, and since my browser's default theme is dark, here I also see this dark background. But if your browser's theme is light, here you would see a lighter background, okay? All right, so now let's go to app.j6 and work with it. So I suggest starting with creating state variables. So state variables are like containers that hold data, okay? So when these values change, React automatically re-renders the component to show the new data. So let's create our first state variable, which will be text. So let's say set text. And by default, it will be equal to an empty string, and we need to import useStateHook from React. So useStateHook from React, it allows us to create and manage state variables in our component. State is like a memory that React uses to remember values between renders, okay? And when it comes to this state variable, here we have text set text. So text will store the input text that the user wants to summarize. And set text is a function to update the text value, okay? And here we have that it is an empty string, so we want to start with an empty string. I think that it is clear to you. Next, let's say that we will have summary. And again, it will be equal to an empty string. So summary will store the AI-generated summary after the user will click the button to summarize it, okay? Next, we need to have a state for loading. So by default, it will be equal to false. So loading will be a boolean, either true or false, that tracks if the AI is currently generating a summary. When it is true, we show a loading spinner, we will show a loading spinner, and we will disable buttons. When it is false, the app is ready for user interaction, okay? Next, let's say that we will have a state for error, and by default, it will be null. So error will store error messages if something goes wrong, like empty input or API failure, okay? And next, let's create a state for copied. So let's say const copied, set copied, and by default, it will be false. So copied will be a boolean that tracks if the user just copied the summary to Clipboard. And we will use this to show copied instead of copy on the button for a small amount of time, okay? So that is great. We have our states, and next we can create our helper functions. The functions which will keep track of how many words are in a string of text, or a function to count sentences, okay? So that kind of functions, we want to have them. So first of all, let's create a function called count words. We need it to count words, and it will accept a string. Okay, so this function count words will count how many words are in a string of text. For example, hello world would return 2 because there are 2 words in hello world. Okay, so first of all, as you can see, we accept our string, then we say string.trim. So string.trim will remove white space from start and end. Okay, then we have step 2, which is split. And here we have regular expression. So basically we split the string into an array by spaces with dot split. And here we have our regular expression. So this part, as I have said, is a regex pattern or regular expression pattern. That means one or more white space characters. All right. So we want to split by one or more white space characters. For example, if we have hello world, as you can see, we have like one space, and then I can add more space. So it means one or more space characters, and we want to divide, okay? We want to split the string into an array by spaces. And then after that, we have an array. We will have hello, then we will have world, okay? We will have this kind of array, and then we want to filter out any empty strings in case there are extra spaces, okay? So for example, if I have hello world and like this, it means that I will have, so let's say here I will have a string, then I will have an empty string, an empty string, an empty string, and so on, right? So we just want to filter out any empty strings in case there are extra spaces, all right? So by doing this, we filter out any empty strings, and then we just return the length of the filtered array, and it will give us the number of words, all right? So I think that everything is clear to you with this function, all right? Then we can create a function to be able to count sentences. So let's say const count sentences. Again, it will accept a string, and here again we have this split method, okay? So this function will count how many sentences are in a string of text. For example, we can have the following text, let's say hello, then we can have dot how are you, okay? So this would return 2 because we have one sentence here and one sentence here. And for the consistency, we can also say that here we want to have trim function. All right. So here we want to just remove white space from start and end with .trim function. And then we split by sentence ending punctuation, which will be dot, exclamation mark, or question mark. Okay. And this part is a regular expression. That means one or more of these characters. All right. Because we have plus. It means one or more of these characters. So it means that we will split here, then we will split here. So it means that we will split by sentence ending punctuation. Then again, we want to filter out any empty strings. And again, when it comes to sentence, we say .trim function to remove any white space from start and end. And finally, we just return the number of sentences, because here we say .length. So here we have hello, how are you? Then if we say I hope you're doing well, we will have 3 sentences, because as you can see, we have this dot, we have this question mark, and we have this exclamation mark. These are considered to be sentence ending punctuation. I think that this moment is also clear to you. If you have some questions, feel free to write them in the comments. All right, and now we need to have paste text function, a function which will read text from the user's clipboard and will put it into the text area. So let's create a function called paste text, and it will be a synchronous function. Oops, let's say that it will be a synchronous function. So here we need to use try and catch block to handle any errors that may occur. So let's say try and catch block. So if we have some errors, we can say console.error. We can say failed to paste. So let's say failed to paste. And then we can provide this error. And also we can show a user-friendly error message. So let's say set error. We can say failed to paste from clipboard. Please use the combination which is Ctrl+V to paste. Okay. But if we don't have any errors, first of all, we need to get clipboard text. And then we need to set text to be clipboard text. So first of all, navigator.clipboard read text is a browser API that reads text from clipboard. And here we have a wait. A wait means wait for this to complete before moving to the next line. Okay. So first of all, we get our clipboard text. Then we want to update the text state with the clipboard content. So this will automatically update the text area because it's connected to this state. It will be connected to this state. Okay. So if I hover over, the read text method of the clipboard interface returns a promise which fulfills with a copy of the textual contents of the system clipboard. Okay, so that's why this function is async await function. Okay, so that's it for this paste text function. And finally, we need to have our main function, our main text summarizing function. It will be the function which will send text to Google's Gemini AI, and we will get a summary back. Okay, so let's say that here we will have a function called summarize text. It will be an asynchronous function because we're going to make an API call. All right, and before making an API call, we need to have input validation. So let's say that we will have some input validation. Let's say that if there is no text, and we can say that we want to remove any leading and trailing white space and line terminator characters from a string. So if there is no text, we can set an error. So let's say set error, and we can say please enter some text to summarize. And then we want to return. It means that we want to stop the function from continuing. And then we can also have some validation for length. For example, we can say that we want to have at least 50 characters. So for that, we can say if text.trim method dot length is less than 50 characters, we want to say text is too short to summarize, please enter at least 50 characters. And then again we want to return, so that it means that we want to stop the function from continuing. And after our validation, if we don't have any errors, we want to set loading to be true. So let's say set loading to be true. And it means that it will show some spinner, and we want to disable buttons. Then we want to clear any previous errors. And we can see that summary will be empty. It means that we want to clear any previous summary so we don't show old results. Okay, at this time, let's come back to our Gemini API documentation. So as you can see, here we need to import Google Gen AI from Google Gen AI. Then we need to have that the client gets the API key from the environment variable. Then we have our response. We provide our model, and in the contents, we provide what we want to have from this model. Okay, so this is the actual prompt or instruction that we send to the AI. Okay, yeah, that is correct. But before doing any API call, let's come back to AI Studio, to Google AI Studio. And here let's click View Billing. Then let's click Rate Limit. And here we will see some limitations with different kinds of models. So let's click All Models. And since we're going to work with Gemini 2.5 Flash, as you can see, it is text out model. And then we have request per minute. As you can see, we have this limitation. Then we have token per minute, and we have request per day. It means that in one day, we can make up to 20 requests. We cannot make 21 requests. We need to wait for resetting. If we have like 20 requests out of 20 requests, we need to wait for resetting, and the next day it will be 0 out of 20, and then we will be able to use it again. Okay, so it is a thing to keep in mind. And also we have a request per minute. It means that we shouldn't make more than 5 requests per 1 minute. So for different kinds of models, you see different kinds of limitations. Okay, and also as you can see, usage data may take up to 15 minutes to update. It is also something to keep in mind. Alright, and now we need to have try and catch block to handle any errors during the API call. So let's say that here we will have try and catch block. And if we run into an error, first of all, in the console, we can show the error. So let's say console.error, summarization failed, and we can show the actual error. And we can say set error. And here we can show error.message, or we can say an error occurred while summarizing the text. All right, for now, we can leave it as it is. So inside try block, as you can see, we need to have our response. Okay, so we need to have our response, and we need to provide an API key here. So we need to create new Google Gen AI. So inside try block, we need to create a new instance of Google Gen AI. So think of this like opening a connection to Google's AI service. So let's say const AI will be equal to new Google Gen AI. And here we need to provide our API key. So API key, so let's say API key. So API key is like a password that proves we're allowed to use the API. And then we need to read the key from our .env file. And for that, we can say import.meta.env with underscore Google API key. All right. So we have created a new instance of Google Gen AI. Next, we need to send a request to the Gemini AI to generate content. So this is like asking the AI a question and waiting for its response. So we can just copy this and let's paste it right here. All right. So as I have already said, this is like asking the AI a question and waiting for its response. So we say const response await AI.models generate content. And then our model, we specify which AI model we want to use. And here we have Gemini 2.5 Flash. It is a fast, efficient model. Then when it comes to contents, this place is the actual prompt or instruction we send to the AI. Okay. And in this case, we can say, please provide a concise summary of the following text. All right. And we provide our text. So we say, please provide a concise summary of the following text. And then we just like break line. It will be like this if you don't know it. And even if you know it. So let's say that here we will have something like this. I mean, let's say that it will be, please provide summary of the following content of the following text. And then we have break line 1. It will be like this, then break line again. And then we provide our actual text. Here we will see our actual text. Okay. So it is for styling reasons. Okay. You can provide this line breaking or you can not provide. It's up to you. All right. So this is our prompt. Please provide a concise summary of the following text, but we need to change it a little. We need to say, please provide a concise, then let's say 1 sentence summary of the following text. Okay. And text will be the actual text that we will put inside text area, as you can see. Okay. All right, guys. So after this, we can extract the text response from the AI's reply. So the API will return an object with multiple properties. We just want the text. So for that, we can say const response text will be equal response dot text. And we can show it in the console. So we can say AI response will be response text. And then we want to update the summary state with this response text. Okay. And also here we have set loading to be true, but after catch block, we can say that finally we want to set loading to be false. Otherwise it will be like infinite. Okay. So finally block always runs whether there was an error or not. And we set loading back to false to hide the spinner and re-enable buttons to hide the loading spinner, which we don't have yet. All right. So yeah, that is great, guys. We can already test this function. So let's say that here I will have a button. So let's say that here we'll have this button. It will be summarized. And when I click this button, I want to call this function. But right now, if I do it immediately, we will see this error. And now I will just paste some text right here. And its length should be at least 50 characters. Okay. So now I will paste this text about water. And we have a lot of errors. Okay. Yeah, I think that I can remove this part because I think that it is already enough. Okay. So as you can see here, I have this long text about water, and along with our instruction, we will provide that text about water. Okay, so let's save it. This is our button. It is our button. Okay. Now I will open DevTools and I will click this button. And we have a reference error. Google Gen AI isn't defined. Okay. It is because we need to import Google Gen AI. So let's say that we want to import it. Okay, let's try one more time. So let's open our DevTools again. Let's click summarize. We have an API key must be set when running in a browser. Okay, so let's come back here. Oh, because here we need to say with Gemini API key. Okay. Let's save it and try one more time. So let's click summarize. And as you can see, we have AI response, and that is really great, guys. In our prompt, we said that we want to have 1 sentence. And as you can see, we have 1 sentence. Okay. And yeah, everything seems to be working. We managed to make an API request and we managed to summarize our text, and it is really great, guys. These kind of features are often met in some SaaS products, right? And if you know how to deal with this kind of applications, even with such small ones, in the future you can grow, you can expand your skills, and you can do much more than just this kind of simple things. But by doing this kind of simple things, we learn to do more, okay? So yeah, that's great, guys. Everything seems to be working and it is really great. So next, after this main function, which is summarize text, we need to have one more function, which will be copying to clipboard function. Okay, it will be a function which will copy the summary text to the user's clipboard. So let's say that here we will have a function called copy to clipboard. Again, it will be a synchronous function. Okay, so again, here we have try and catch block to handle some errors which may appear. Then we have navigator.clipboard write text method, and we provide our summary. So the write text method of the clipboard interface writes the specified text to the system clipboard, returning a promise that is resolved once the system clipboard has been updated. So it is similar to paste text, okay? But this time it is for copying. And that's why, as you can see, here we have a promise. So that's why this function is async await function. Then we say set copy to be true. And after 2 seconds, we make it to be false again. So we do it for a nice UI effect. And in case of some errors, we can show the error in the console by saying failed to copy. And we can show the error. And also we can show the error in the UI by saying failed to copy to clipboard. Please try again. All right. Next, we can create clear all function, a function which will reset everything back to the initial empty state. So let's say const clear all. Okay. And here we need to reset text, summary, error, and copied states back to the initial states. Okay. So that is great. So let's save it, guys. And yeah, so that's it for our functions. And actually we can remove this text and we can make it to be empty. Okay, so that's it for our functionality, for our functions, for our states. And now we need to work with our layout. We need to have our UI interface. Okay, if you managed to do everything correctly up to this point, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you haven't done it yet. Thank you, I really appreciate it. Okay, and everything after return here is the HTML-like code J6 that creates our user interface. J6 looks like HTML, but is actually JavaScript. Okay, so here we have our div, and we can set its theme to be light. We can say data-theme to be light. If I save this file, as you can see, this part is light. So light forces the light theme, so colors stay consistent. It comes from DaisyUI, okay? And let's say that to this div, we can also apply some styles. Let's say that min height will be screen. And now if I save this file, as you can see, the whole page is light now, okay? Then we can have some background gradient. For that, we can say background linear to bottom right. Okay, so it will create a diagonal gradient background. Since we have our gradient, we need to set the colors that we want to involve in it. So let's say that we want to start from purple 100 via blue 100 to pink 100. Okay, so let's save it. And as you can see, the color has changed, which is really great, guys. So after we set the background color, we can create a container which will center content and will add some padding. So let's say that first of all, we want to remove this text. All right. And now let's say that here we will have a div, and to this div, we can apply the following class, which will be container. So if I hover over, as you can see, we have the beauty that Tailwind CSS provides. So this class is from Tailwind CSS, and it is really great because it provides responsiveness. After this class, we can say a mix to be auto. It means margin left to be auto, margin right to be auto. So this class will center our content, and we can give some padding, which will be 4, for example. And we can say that horizontally it will be 4, but vertically it will be 12. Okay, so that is great, guys. And now we can create our header section. So let's say that here we will have a div, and inside we will have h1 tag. And here let's say AI text summarizer. All right, so let's save it. Okay, it looks nice. And we can also add an icon right here. But for that, we need to import it from React icons. So let's say that here we will import an icon which is IO sparkles. Sparkles. And we import it from React icons. All right. So let's come back here. And here we want to use it. So let's say that here we want to have sparkles. And let's save it. As you can see, this is how it looks. But we can say that we want to change its color. So we can say class name, and we want to make it to be purple 600, for example. Let's save it. All right. Yeah, now it's purple. Okay. So first of all, to this div which contains this h1 tag, let's say that text will be center, and we can give some margin bottom which will be 12, because under this we will have another sections. So to this h1, let's apply the following styles. Let's say that text will be 6XL. All right. Font will be bold. Margin bottom will be 4. Great. And we can also say that background color will be gradient color. Let's say background linear, and direction will be to right. Let's say from purple 600 to blue 600. So let's save it. And yeah, this is how it looks. But we want to remove the whole background, and we want to apply it only to this text. For that, let's say background clip text. Okay, as you can see, it is gone. But at the same time, as you can see, the text is still black. To make it to be this gradient color, we need to say text to be transparent. And now, as you can see, we see this gradient color. To make it even clearer that we have gradient, let's say that here we will have yellow 900, for example. As you can see, it has changed and it is really gradient. But I will change it back to be blue 600, okay? And to have this icon on one line with this text, we can say that display will be flex and items will be center, okay? And we can also say that justify will be center, and gap between the elements will be 3. So let's save it. Okay, let's see it on bigger screen. All right, guys, it looks really, really nice. Okay, but on smaller screens, the title is too large. So let's say that by default, it will be 4XL. Then on medium screens and higher, it will be 5XL. And on large screens and higher, it will be 6XL. So let's save it. Okay, now it's much better. And we will come back to the responsiveness matter a bit later. And for now, let's continue with what we have and with what we can. Okay, so under this h1, we can create a p tag, and we can have powered by Google Gemini AI. And let's say that we want to apply the following styles. Text will be XL, and text will be base content 70%. So the color will be 70% of our base content. It means 70% of this light theme, okay? And let's say that font will be medium. Let's say font will be medium. So let's save it. Okay, this is how it looks. All right, guys. And after this section, we can have main cart section. So a section which will contain all the main functionality. Okay, so let's create a div and let's give it some styles. First of all, let's give it a class which will be cart. So this class comes from DaisyUI, as you can see. All right. And we use DaisyUI to make our styling with Tailwind CSS faster and better and more comfortable. Okay. And also with DaisyUI, we make our code look clean because DaisyUI saves up so much space and time, which is really great. And let's say that background color will be base 100. It means that this color is based on our theme. So we can say base 100. Okay. And then let's say that we want to give some shadow, which will be 2XL, and we can set max width to be 5XL, which is, let's see, which is 1024 pixels. And we can say MX to be auto to center the content. All right. Since we have card, it means that we need to have card body. It is a class from DaisyUI as well. Okay. And we can give some padding, which will be 8. All right. So let's save this file. And as you can see, we have this area and we have some shadow, which is really cool. So inside cart body, we want to have our input section. So let's create a div, and inside this div, we will have top bar with label and stats. So here we will have label, and here we will see stats like how many words, how many characters, and so on. All right. So here, let's say that we will have a label, and here we can say enter your text. And I will add some icon here. So I will add this icon, for example. So let's save it. Okay, this is how it looks. Let's give some styles to this label. Let's say that text will be large and font will be semi-bold. Okay, then on the right side, we need to have statistics and paste button. So let's say that under this label, we want to have a div, and let's say that to this div, we want to apply the following styles. It will be tooltip. So we want to have tooltip. Again, it is a class from DaisyUI. And let's say that data that we want to show inside tooltip will be the following. And for that, we need to say data-tip will be equal to, here we need to use curly braces and backticks, and we need to say that we will have a $sign and we will say text.length. Okay, we can say text.length characters. All right, then we can have a batch that shows word and sentence count. So let's say that here we will have a div, and to this div we can immediately apply the following styles, the following classes, which will be batch. It is a class from DaisyUI, and we can say that its size will be large, and when it comes to styles, we can say that it will be ghost. It's just for color. And we can say that gap will be 2, because here we will have at least 2 items, which will be for sentences and for words. Okay, so here let's say that we will have the following. Let's say that we want to call our function, which will be count words, to get word count. So let's say count words, and we want to get our words. Yeah, and the same we want to have for our sentences. So let's accept it. So that is great, guys. So let's save it. So as you can see, we have this tooltip when we hover for characters. We have 0 words, 0 sentences, and when we hover, we have this tooltip which says 0 characters. Okay, so we have our label, then we have this div which contains words, the number of words and the number of sentences, and then we have this tooltip, and when we hover, it shows the number of characters. So now to this div, we can apply the following classes to be able to style this top bar. So let's say that to this div, we will apply the following styles. Let's say that it will be flex, display will be flex, and items will be center. All right, and we can give some gap between the elements, which will be 3. Okay, yeah, but it isn't what we want, by the way. Yeah, but at the same time, we should take this label and we need to put it here. Okay, and here we will have our label. Here we will have our div, which will contain this div, and right after this div, we need to have our button, okay, to be able to paste a text. So let's say that here we will have a button. For now, I will just say paste. Yeah, this is how it will be. And now let's just cut this part, and we need to create a div, and let's paste it right here. And to this div, let's say that margin bottom will be 6, okay? And now let's just cut this part again. Oops, let's just cut it properly. And here we will have another div. And to this div, let's apply the following styles to have this label and these stats on one line. Let's say that it will be flex, items will be center, and we can say justify between. All right, and we can say that margin bottom will be 3. Okay, yeah, that's what we need. Great. So now we need to deal with this button, which is paste button. First of all, let's say that here, along with this text, we want to have an icon. So let's say that we want to import it. So let's say import hi clipboard from React icons. All right. And we want to use it right here. So now let's save this file. And as you can see, this is how it looks. But to this icon, let's apply the following classes, which will be width to be 4 and height to be 4. Now it is a little bigger. All right. to this button, we can apply the following styles. Let's say that it will be button, and button will be small, and button color will be primary. Okay, and we can give some gap between the icon and the text, which will be 2. So button is a class that comes from DaisyUI. Okay, then we define the size. We say that it will be small, and primary stands for color. So let's save it. And yeah, this is how it looks. So let's see it on bigger screen. All right, it looks nice, but on smaller screen, we have some issues, as you can see. So to fix this issue, let's say that we want to come to this div, which contains this label and this div. So let's say that we want to apply the following styles. Let's say that by default, flex direction will be column, but on small screens and higher, flex direction will be row. By default, items will be start, but on small screens and higher, items will be center. Okay. And we can say that gap will be 3. So let's save it. Yeah, it looks cool, I would say. And on bigger screens, everything is also great. So let's continue. All right, here we can have text area for user input. So let's say that here we will have text area. All right, for the placeholder, let's say paste your article, blog post, or any long text here. So let's save it. Yeah, this is how it looks. So let's apply some styles to it. First of all, let's say that it will be text area, a class that comes from DaisyUI. And as you can see now, it already looks cool, right? Then let's say that text area will be primary. Oops, let's say primary. As you can see, we have some blue border. And we can say that width will be full. All right. And height will be 56, for example. And if you want to stop resizing, you can say that resize will be none. Okay, but I will leave it. All right. So when it comes to value, let's say that it will be text. Then on change, so whenever user types, we want to update the text state with new value. So let's say on change, and here we can get access to this event object, and we can say set text to be whatever a user types. So whatever we type here, we want to set our text state with whatever we type. All right, so let's save it. And now we can type, and as you can see, we see 9 characters, 1 word, 1 sentence. Okay, now if I type something like this, we have 2 words. Now if I type, we have 2 sentences. Now if I type, we have 3 sentences. So yeah, that's great. And in total, we have 34 characters. That's great, guys. And now we can have a section for error alert. A section where we want to have conditional rendering. We want to show an error alert only if error exists. So let's say that here we will have the following: if error is true, only in that particular case we want to show this div. Okay, and to this div we can apply the following classes. Let's say that it will be alert, a class that comes from DaisyUI, and we can specify that it will be alert error, and we can give some margin bottom, which will be 6. So alert error will give us like colors which are associated with error in general. Okay, and inside span tag we can show the actual error. Okay, and we can have warning icon that we need to import it. So let's say that it will be high exclamation circle. So we want to show it as well. So let's say that before span we want to have it. Okay, so let's save it. And now we don't see it, but we can see it if, for example, I say, for example, hello. So as you can see, this is how it looks. And actually, I think that margin right to be 2 can be removed. Yeah, it looks nice anyway. I can say alert success, for example. Okay, it's up to you. Okay, but I will make it to be error. And let's say that now I want to remove it and I want to have null again. So that is great, guys. Next, we can have a section for action buttons. For a button, for example, to clear everything, or for a button to summarize our text. So let's say that here I will create a div, and this div will contain two buttons. One of them will be clear, and the other one will be summarize. Okay, so here they are, and I want to put them to the right side. To do that, to this div, let's say that display will be flex and justify will be end. Okay, and let's say that the gap between the buttons will be 3, and we can give some margin bottom, which will be 6. All right. So when it comes to this button, which is clear button, let's say that we want to apply the following styles. Let's say that it will be button, and button will be secondary. So let's save it. As you can see, here it is. So when we click this button, which is clear, we can say that we want to call our function, which is clear all. And we want to make this button to be disabled when loading is true. All right. Okay. And when it comes to this button, let's say that it will be button, and button will be primary. All right. So when we click this button, we want to call our function, which is summarize text, and we want to make this button disabled when loading is true. Then we want to have conditional rendering based on loading state. So if loading is true, we want to show spinner and text which will be summarizing. So now let's say that we will remove this text and we will have conditional rendering. So let's say, So let's say if loading is true, we want to have, for example, a div here. But if loading is false, we want to have, for example, a div here as well. So if loading is true, let's say that here we will have fragment, okay, and we will have a span. So this span will be for loading. So loading is a class that comes from DaisyUI. Then we specify that for loading, for showing that loading is true, we want to have spinner, okay, and we can have a text which will be summarizing. Otherwise, we want to have a fragment again, just an empty fragment, and we want to have summarize. And we need to have an icon from React icons. So let's say hi pencil art, pencil alt. Okay. So we need to use it. So let's say that here we want to use it, and we can specify that width will be 5 and height will be 5. So let's save it. Yeah, this is how it looks. It is nice. So now if I click this button, we should see an error. Yeah, because we don't have any text. But if I enter, for example, something like this, we will see another error because text is too short to summarize. Please enter at least 50 characters. Okay, so let's clear it. All right, guys. And now we need to have a divider, and we want to show that divider only when we have summary. So when we have summary, we want to have a divider. So under this div, let's say that here, if summary is true, only in that particular case, we want to have a div, okay? And let's say that to this div, we will just add a class, which will be divider. So this div will not contain anything. So a divider is a class that comes from DaisyUI. So now if I save, we will not see anything. But if I make summary to be true, this is how it's gonna be. Okay, we have some divider. All right. And then we need to show the entire summary. So let's say that if summary is true, only in this particular case, we want to have a div. Okay. And inside this div, we will have another div, which will contain h2 tag, and we will see summary. So I will just paste this icon here. Okay. It will be for our summary. Then we need to have a tooltip with character count. So let's say that here I will have a div, and to this div, let's say that it will be tooltip, a class from DaisyUI. And when we hover that tooltip, we want to show the following data. So let's say that here we will have curly brace and backticks, and here we want to have summary length. So let's say summary.length characters. Okay, and here we will have exactly the same as we have it right here. So we can just copy this Okay. And let's just paste it right here. Okay. So this div is for the left side, which will contain title and statistics. And for the right side, we want to have a button to be able to copy text to clipboard. So when we click this button, we want to call our function, which is copy to clipboard. And here we want to conditionally render the text. So if copied is true, we want to have something here. Otherwise, we want to have something here. Okay. So if copied is true, we need to import an icon from React icons, which is hi check. Okay. Yeah. So let's come back here. And here, instead of this div, we want to have just a fragment. And let's say that we want to use that icon, which is hi check. Okay. And we can remove this color, for example. And we can say that width will be 5 and height will be 5. And after this icon, we want to have a text which will say copied. Here we also want to have an empty fragment. And we need to say hi clipboard. And we just want to say copy. All right. Yeah, that's it. So let's save it. For now, I will make summary to be true so that we will see what's going on. Okay. All right. So first of all, to this div, which contains this left side and that right side, let's say that display will be flex and items will be center and justify will be between and margin bottom will be 4. So let's save it. Okay, this is how it looks. Then to this button, let's apply the following styles. Let's say that it will be button and button will be success, it will be green and gap will be 2. All right, it looks cool. Then to this H2 tag, let's say that text will be 2XL and font will be bold. Okay, let's see how it looks on big screen. All right. And then to this div, which contains this title and this tooltip, let's say that display will be flex, items will be center, and gap will be 3. Okay, and again, we have the same situation. First of all, let's see how it looks on big screen. Okay, it looks cool. Then, to deal with this on smaller screens, we can come back here and we can just copy all these styles, I think. So let's just copy these styles and we can come back here and let's just paste it. All right. Now it looks cool. So let's open it on bigger screens. Yeah, it looks nice. And yeah, I like the way it looks. All right. So after this div, we can show the actual summary text. Okay. For that we can have a div. And yeah, we have an error because we have like 2 elements without a parent. So we can just cut all these elements. We can create one parent so that we will have no errors. And we can paste everything here again. So to this div, we can apply the following styles. It will be alert and it will be green. It means alert success. Okay. And inside this div, we want to have a p tag and we want to display the actual summary. To this p tag, let's apply the following styles. Text will be large and width will be full. Okay. And let's also apply the following classes. It will be leading relaxed. So it will increase the line height for better readability. And white space free wrap. This class will preserve line breaks and wraps text. Okay. So let's save it. And this is our summary. If I hover over, as you can see, it says 2 characters. I can copy it. So as you can see, it is copied. And now it is back like that. Let's click paste. And yeah, this is how it looks. Now if I click clear, it is gone. If I click paste, it is here. If I click summarize, I will see an error because text is too short. So now let's clear it. Okay, that is great. So now let's paste here a real text that we want to summarize. Okay, so here I have some text about cars. Okay, as you can see, we have 208 words, 14 sentences. Let's click summarize As you can see, we have it. Actually, we need to make it to be disabled, okay? And yeah, now we have our summary. Cars are profoundly influential inventions. So, and actually, we also have 208 words, but it shouldn't be like that. And it's clear that we don't have 14 sentences here, okay? So let's deal with it. But anyway, we already have our summary text, and it is really great, guys. It's a really cool feature, and I really like it. And what's good about it is that if you already have a working project, you can easily integrate this feature to your project. The main concern that you should take into account is that if you go with free tier, you may run into some limitations. So you may consider paying some money to prevent limitations to provide what you need to provide. It's up to you. But this feature is really great and I really like it. So let's fix this moment. So here, instead of text, we need to provide summary, and it will fix our issue. And as you can see here, we have 28 words and 1 sentence. Initially, we had 208 words. Now we have 28 words. Now we have only 1 sentence, and we had 14 sentences. Okay, now we can copy it, and we can just remove this text. We can paste what we have copied. Okay, yeah, that is really great. So let's clear it. And when I clicked summarize, and when we had loading, as you saw, this button wasn't disabled. Let's make it to be disabled. So this button should be disabled when loading is true. Okay, and also we can have some footer under this summary. So let's create our footer section. Here we will have a div, and to this div, let's say that text will be center, margin top will be 10, and here we will have a p tag. And here I will say build with React, Tailwind CSS, DaisyUI, and Google Gemini API. And to this p tag, let's apply the following styles. Let's say that text color will be base content 60%. And it means DaisyUI text color at 60% opacity. And by default, our theme is light. So this color is based on our theme color. And let's say that font will be medium. Okay, so let's save it. And yeah, this is how it looks. And if we come here, and if we say data theme to be dark, let's save it. As you can see, this is how it looks. But we want to have light theme, okay? Yeah. So now if I click paste, as you can see, I have that text which we had like a summary. It is a summary. So let's say that I want to click summarize. As you can see, the loading is happening and we have this error. It happens sometimes. It isn't our fault. It means that the model is overloaded. Please try again later, okay? So again, 503 error. This means Google's servers are busy right now. This is completely normal and happens sometimes when many people are using the API. It's not our code, not our API key, just temporary high traffic on Google's site. Let's wait a moment and try again. So I waited a little. Let's click summarize again. And as you can see, now everything is fine. So as you can see, we had 28 words. And again, we have 28 words. Now let's click summarize again to see if this text will change or not. So as you can see, this time we have 27 words. It means something has changed. But since this text is already like a summary, I think that we will get every single time a text similar to this. But if we have like a large text as we had previously, of course, we will have a shorter text which will be completely different to a large text that we paste here because we want to have like 1 sentence summary, okay? So let's try to do it again. Let's try to test it again. So now let's clear it. And this time I have a text about animals. So now I will click paste. And as you can see, I have this long text. So let's click summarize. And as you can see, we have what we need to have. So that is really great, guys. And when it comes to usage, and as you can see, here I can keep track of how many attempts I have left. As you can see, I have used 4 out of 20. Here you can keep track of your limits, okay? And yeah, I think that's it. Let's see how it looks on smaller screens. So as you can see, up to this point, everything seems to be good. But then when we come here, as you can see, we have some overflowing and I don't really like it. We can deal with this as well. But on bigger screen, everything looks great. Okay, and to fix it, let's come to this batch and let's see that initially batch will be small, but on small screens and higher, batch will be large. And let's just copy this. And the same should be done to summary here. Okay, let's save it and see what we have. Yeah, as you can see, we are at 357 pixels. And even now, everything looks good. But at the same time, we can make this button to be smaller, for example. We can make it to be the same size as paste, right? So let's come to our button, which is copy. And let's say that initially button size will be small, but on small screens and higher, button size will be medium, which is default. So let's save it. And this is how it looks. Yeah. And yeah, of course, all the styles are up to you. You can style it the way you want. And currently, I like what I have. Okay. So the minimum for me is 375 pixels. And you may consider removing, for example, this icon on this size. Right? Yeah, let's say that this icon will be hidden by default, but on small screens and higher, it will be blocked. So let's save it. And yeah, this is how it looks. I really like what we have. Okay, all right, guys. And as you can see, here I have like 1 word and 1 sentence, but here we have 1 word, 1 sentences. However, it should be 1 word and 1 sentence, and the same goes here. Okay, so we can fix it. So under count sentences function, we can create a new function called pluralize. And this function will accept 3 parameters. It will be count, then whether it is singular and plural. Okay, then we need to do the following. So let's say that if count is strictly equal to 1, then it means that it has to be singular, so we return singular, otherwise we will return plural. So if our count is 1, it means that it will be 1 word or 1 sentence. But if our count any other number than 1, it will be plural, okay? So let's take this function and we need to use it in multiple places. So for example, we need to use it here. So let's say that here we will remove words. And then here we want to have our function, which is pluralize. So let's say pluralize function. And we want to pass to it our function, which is count words text, which is count words. And to that count words, we need to pass text. So first of all, as you remember in our pluralize function, the first parameter is count. So in that case, we just can use our function, which is count words. So we will get our count. Then the second parameter was singular. So since it's singular, we need to pass words. And the third parameter was plural. In that case, we can do words. Okay. And the same with sentences. So let's say that here we will have our function. And in this case, it will be for count sentences. And instead of word, here we need to have sentence. And here we need to have sentences. Okay. So we can just copy this and we can do exactly the same here. Okay. So let's save it. And as you can see here, we have 1 word and we have 1 sentence. Yeah, we just need to remove sentence here. It is gone. And we need to remove sentence here. Okay. Yeah, now we have what we want. It is 1 word and 1 sentence. And here we need to have space. So let's say that here we want to have some space. Okay. And it means that the same should be done here. All right, now it is correct, right? So, but if we have, for example, 2 words, it is already 2 words, and it is 1 sentence, it is 1 sentence, okay? It's just a small correction that we can make. So let's clear everything. And now I want to show you another cool thing. So I want to show you a quick enhancement that will make this app look even more professional, okay? As you can see, this is how it looks. And now I will paste another text. So let's paste this text, okay? Let's click summarize. And yeah, that is great. So I just wanted to show you how you can change your application if you want, okay? Now we will quickly go over the code which provides this layout, but I will not spend too much time on it because our tutorial is already long enough, okay? So what's cool about this layout is that it is still fully responsive on mobile. It stacks vertically, okay? I just wanted to show you a different layout, a split view layout, okay? So as you can see, it is still responsive, which is really great, guys. Yeah, but still, here we still have 1 sentences, right? Yeah, but you already know how to fix it, guys, okay? Yes, it is like that. It is like 1 words and 1 sentences because in this layout, I did this layout earlier than I implemented this function and this pluralize function, and that's why we still saw like 1 sentences and 1 words. But guys, you already know how to fix it, and it makes everything even better with this approach, right? So the main thing here is that here we have like header, then we have error alert, which shows above both panels. And then we use grid, like 1 column on mobile and 2 columns on desktop. This is left panel when we enter our text, and this is the right panel, okay? That's basically it. I just wanted to show you how we can have different kinds of layouts. But now I will switch back to the previous one, to our original one, okay? Yes, and of course, when it comes to summary, here we need to provide not text, but summary, okay? So let's change this tiny thing. And yeah, so let's save this file. So yeah, that's it. And yeah, this is how our original one looks like, and I really like it. So that's it, guys. If you find this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you haven't done it yet. Thank you, I really appreciate it.